I recently sent an email out talking about the difference between planning and decision making. And we got so many responses back thanking me for this distinction. So I knew this was worthy to bring into the podcast here and have a deeper conversation about it today. Well, hey there. Welcome back to Work-Life Harmony. Today, what you are going to learn can be incredibly impactful, especially if you are someone that gets easily overwhelmed or feels anxious about embarking on a large project where there might be a lot of unknowns. And today, we're really going to be highlighting the difference between planning and decision making and making sure you understand what their relationship is, but more importantly, how planning, when done the right way, is going to help you not have as much discomfort, worries, etc., around large projects where there might be a lot of unknowns. And this is going to be coming from a very personal place that my husband and I are in right now. Now, my husband is an amazing researcher, organizer. He will think through all of the details obsessively. If there is a new, like I remember years ago when he was needing to buy a new lawnmower, we needed a new lawnmower. The amount of in-depth research and weeks spent doing that, more than I would have needed. He does it, I think, a little obsessively, but on the flip side, he never really makes mistakes with his purchases because of the amount of planning, thoughtfulness, research, etc. And the way he approaches planning and the only way he feels settled is when there's a plan A, B, C, D, probably E, maybe even an F and a G for good measure. All right, he wants what are all the possible things that could go wrong, and then what will the plan be in all of those cases. Now, again, once he goes into execution mode, he produces incredible work, right? But the amount of time, the amount of stress, worry, concern that can go into planning these types of things, again, this is where he and I approach planning very differently. So he is not a student of the top framework. So I just kind of want to give that caveat. Now, what we are embarking on right now, it's actually a lot. We have a lot of large projects all converging at once that all have a lot of unknowns and all have a lot of moving parts. All right. So, juggling all of these multiple projects at once has what has really shown this massive spotlight here in our house on the differences in how he plans through these large projects versus how I plan and think about these large projects. And at the end of the day, what has bubbled up is that this recognition of there is a complete difference between the two of us of what planning means. All right. So for me, when I'm thinking about a plan for a large project or really for anything, it ultimately is a roadmap, if you will, of what needs to happen with maybe some identifiers of, hey, these are going to be some key decisions that are going to be made at some point in order for me to reach my end goal. All right, that's it. For him and for many other people, so if you're listening and this resonates with you, you really need to focus on what we're going to be talking about. For him, a plan includes every detail, including contingencies, and ideally having every single decision made before you take the first step of the plan. All right, so his style of planning includes decisions and a very specific known outcome. So let's kind of take a step back. The way I define planning versus decision making, all right, a plan is about a process. Planning is all about a process. Decision making is about selection. A plan, in the way I teach it, it is a structure that allows you to make decisions over time, right? You're putting the structure in place that says decisions will need to be made, but they're going to be made over time. Whereas a decision is a commitment that you're making right now. And when you look at really good planning actually defers decision making intentionally. A really good plan only asks you to make the one decision or however many decisions you need in the moment to give you the information needed to go to the next step in the plan. All right. A plan creates the container for future decision making. And the reason why we want to have a plan that defers decisions is we want to wait to make sure that we're getting the best possible information that we can before we make the next decision. All right. So, and what happens is if you are someone that wants all the decisions made, if your comfort level with planning means decisions are made and the outcome is clearly defined and you know all the answers before you start, well, oh my goodness, of course that's going to create a tremendous amount of stress, right? Because stress actually starts happening when you are making decisions when you don't have all the information that you might need to make a good one. And so people subconsciously don't realize they think they're planning. They're like, I'm trying to get this planned out. But what they're trying to do is lock in decisions and outcomes too soon. That is not planning. That's control seeking. And friends, believe me, I do love me some control. So I understand the desire to have that. But a good plan will actually include some sort of signifier for you to let you know when you need to make decisions, meaning it doesn't all need to happen now. So I'm going to share a little bit. I think it's good when we can talk in very specific examples and kind of the one of the big projects that's bubbling up here at our home that kind of brought this conversation up to the front for my husband and I, which has been fantastic. So my mother-in-law is going to be moving. It is a significant move. She's moving from, good 4.5, 5 hours away in a large home all by herself. And she's going to be moving here close to us into a retirement community. This is a significant project, right? Downsizing from a massive home to a one-bedroom apartment. She does not drive. She has a house full of stuff, right? I mean, anyone who's been through moving, downsizing, you know what this is going to entail, right? There's a lot of moving parts. So in my own bubble, when I was thinking about creating a plan for this, right? Here was at a high level what the plan looked like. All right, we need to, step one, do our own research here to get a short list together of communities that we would feel like, yeah, this is worthy for you to come look at, right? We want to do that initial legwork. Then the next step is going to be to get her here and facilitate a visit where we can go around and look at all of those. And then that's when a decision can be made about where do you want to live and when is that available. Once those decisions are made, then that kind of unlocks the rest of the plan that I know exists, which is determining what furniture is coming, what's not, right? The process for then selling, donating, et cetera, everything else in the home, selling the actual home, right? All of those things are going to need to happen. This is not going to be something that's done in a week. Now, I have created my own visual plan in Trello of all of the big things that are going to need to happen, but there's a lot of decisions that I really don't feel we need to be making today because we don't know where, at the time I was sending that email out, we didn't know where she was even going to be living. Now, what I didn't realize is my husband is over here also, of course, thinking about this and thinking about what this plan is going to look like. The plan that he was, in his own bubble mentally creating was one where he was, as part of his plan, thinking through what furniture are we moving, researching movers, right? And trying to identify when to move. The bottom line is we don't even know what size apartment she's going to be moving into or when that could even happen. There may be a place we love that she loves and she's not moving 8 months from now versus maybe we're moving in 2 months, right? We don't know that. And so spending a ton of time and energy in the moment to be researching moving companies and making lists of furniture that's going to be moved versus not is expending so much mental energy and worry because decisions are trying to be made without having really good information to make smart decisions. Right? There's no point in researching and hiring movers if we're not going to potentially need them for another 9 months. So when we are making decisions, without really good data and thinking that we don't have a plan in place because the decisions aren't answered, it makes us feel really anxious. Those are the things that keep us up at night, right? How are we going to get that packed up? How are we going to get the move? Don't know. We don't know the how yet, but we do know what step of the plan that's going to happen in. Now, if this were the only thing that we were navigating right now, we probably each would have been handling this quietly in our own way without us even recognizing that we're approaching this very differently. Well, life happens, right? And I'm sure you have all been in a scenario like this. Not only has this big project, bubbled up for us in our lives, well, it happened at the same time that our garage doors stopped working, the very same week that we were navigating tours of, of assisted living communities. We've discovered a huge leak in the ceiling underneath our shower. So now we don't even know what that is. It's going to be a quick fix. Is it not? Are we going to have to rip stuff out? We don't even know yet. Along with, oh, hey, just came back from a seminar on it's time for you to start getting your act together for thinking about college planning, right? In terms of researching the schools, getting the short list, arranging tour dates, all of that. So, and just regular life. When you layer multiple large projects that are going to have a lot of decision points that need to be made, that are going to be happening concurrently with unclear outcomes, right? This is what can just absolutely spiral people into feeling absolutely overwhelmed. And when we get that way, we almost just stop wanting to do anything. And we definitely hit that because as we were navigating, everything with planning for my mother-in-law here, and the leak hit, and I just simply said, "Hey, I'm going to call insurance tomorrow." My husband's response was, "We can't do that right now. I can't think about it right now." I said, well, again, what I was so awesome about this conversation was it led us to have this realization of planning versus decision making. So I was able, we were able to talk through, well, just having someone come out and look at it allows us to now unlock the information we need to know what kind of a project are we dealing with. Whereas, so I'm thinking, let's get on that right now to get the information to make the next decision. But for him, it was no, the minute we call someone, we don't call anyone till we have all of our contingency plans in place of, okay, if it's just a simple leak that gets fixed and we just patch the wall, that's plan A, and we need to know who we're going to use and when's a good time to do it. What if it's plan B and it's not a simple thing and we uncover there's mold in the ceiling? That's going to be plan B. What if it's plan C and we realize we need to now rip out the entire shower pan? We need to figure out what that's going to look like. So for him, it was a don't even start on the first step because we don't have plan A, B, C, D, and E laid out knowing how this is going to go. And so when we finally realized this was the big disconnect, right, it enabled us to have a really great conversation about it. And so I want to tell you what we're doing to help kind of relieve some of the worry, the stress, the anxiety around all of this. So if you ever find yourself in a similar position where it's like, it's one more thing too many, right? I want you to think about why is this causing overwhelm? And it's likely due to the unknown, right? Like our ceiling it's an unknown. We don't know what's looming in there. And the lack of decisions and clarity of what's going to happen just can be too much. This is when leaning into creating a visual, I'm going to tell you what I mean by visual, a visual plan that is truly just a plan, the container for the decision making becomes incredibly helpful. So since we have a lot of moving parts right now, our visual plan included standing together in front of, I have these giant wall calendars, right, where we can see multiple months out, all the big things that we have going on. And really, first step that we did was I started with just pen and paper. I'm like, okay, let's break this down project by project, right? What are the moving parts for your mom's move, right? So we laid out what are the basics, finding the home, scheduling a moving date, getting her moved here, selling the house, like all of those things. And we agreed, all right, we really can't make decisions on anything until we know where she's moving and when she's moving. So, do we have control over that? Not really. We just continue to what we can control is going on tours, right? Showing her places until we find a place. So we were able to say, okay, that is really the only thing that we are actively working on right now. We have all the rest of the steps written out. And when we make decision one, then we come back and look at our plan and say, now here's the next step. Then we went through the same thing with all of the other big projects where we sat down and said, okay, let's think about what are all of the decisions that we might need to make, right? What are the steps? What order are we going in here? And now what is the first step? So with the leak in the ceiling, right? The first step is we need to see what's going on under there. So that means calling someone, getting them out. Then based on the answer, when we have that information, now we know we will move forward with the rest of our plan. Same with the garage doors. Are we replacing them all? Is there a temporary fix? Like what's going? We don't know. So step one is getting someone out to look at the garage doors. Once we gather that data, then we will go in the next step of the plan. Now, you may be someone that wants to think through multiple plans based on the outcome, and that's totally fine as well, but we don't want to overdo it. So, for example, the water leak in our ceiling, simply saying, let's just call someone out here and see what's going on was not enough comfort for my husband, which is totally understandable. So we talked through, okay, let's at least just talk through the two, like the best and the worst case scenario. Best case is there's just a quick leak they're going to fix. We let it air out and we patch it. Do we feel comfortable that that's something we can manage right now? Yep. Plan B, worst case, like worst case scenario, who knows? Maybe it's been going on forever. There's mold up in there. We're going to have to rip out the shower floor of the bathroom. Like this sounds, feels awful. Probably is going to cost a ton of money. We're like, okay, how do we feel if that's the path we need to go in? Do we know how to execute that? Will we know how to find the right people? Do we feel comfortable that we would know how to navigate it once we have that information? And we kind of drafted out what a rough plan might look like for that. So then we were able to take a step back and say, okay, are we in a position right now to make that first decision, which is understand what's going on, knowing that we're on the same page with best case and worst case, like what those two paths might look like. And so each of these individual projects, and we did the same thing looking at the calendar with regards to college planning and prep. And so all of these got mapped out together, and I love Trello. So, of course, I brought up Trello as a visual tool for us. I put each project in its own list. We could see it all side by side on one board because they're all going to be happening in parallel, right? And I color coded it in terms of decisions that need to be made. So only the things that were colored, I think we did like orange or something, a really bright orange. Anything that's bright orange was something we have control over right now, where we're going to get a decision and then move to the next step in the plan. And when we went through what looked like an impossible and feels like an impossible thing with these 4 big projects, along with every just day-to-day life, at the end of the day, there were only 3 things that had the orange color that are in our control that were going to give us information to allow us to move to the next step. Nailing down where my mother-in-law is going to be moving was bright orange. Getting the data about the leak in the dining room, bright orange. Getting an assessment of the garage door, bright orange. And with the college planning stuff, there's nothing that really needs to be happening before April. So as of right now in this moment, there really is not a to-do, but it felt like it, right? Because this is soon, it's out there, it's going to look. But when we mapped it out, we're like, yeah, we're good right now. So now that we have this visual tool, what happens is when we start feeling anxious about it, which we will, right? All of a sudden we're having dinner, we're thinking, oh my gosh, how are we going to manage this move? We get to pause and go, hang on, what's the next step in the plan? Nailing down where she's living and when she's moving. That's really all we can focus on right now. And we will tackle the next step when we have that information. But this is why that visual tool is so incredibly important, right? Without the visual tool, you don't feel like you have it all organized. You're worried you're going to forget something. You're ruminating over it because you've got all this stuff packed into your brain. So now anytime we're feeling anxious about any one of these big projects, we can pull up the Trello board and then we'll change the orange cards as needed to be like, no, this is it for right now. This is the next best step. And so when you can learn to separate decision making from the physical plan, right? Now the plan supports your decision making, but you don't need to have all the decisions made before you take the first step on your plan. And this is where, personality types can really butt up against each other. I'm not saying someone's a better planner than someone else. It's just how our comfort levels are wired, right? I do tend to, this is something I had to learn. I am far more comfortable with all the information, knowing exactly how things are, are going to go. Believe me, where I am now took a lot of practice and time in planning and seeing the realities of how planning supports and can defer decision making. So I was not naturally born this way. This was something I learned and evolved into. And now we as a family are all able to lean on this tool together. Another way of kind of thinking about it is imagine you were building a brand new house, right? Like brand new house. You go buy a lot of land and you're like, okay, what house are we going to build? The builder would not show up with light fixture cover plates and be like, "All right, we gotta pick out your light fixture cover plates today." You haven't even picked a design for the house. You haven't even broken ground on the house yet, right? But it would be easy to start spiraling over, what color is the living room gonna be? Who the heck knows? First and foremost, let's pick a design for the house and actually start building it. We don't need to make decisions about what color your light fixtures are going to be and what curtains are gonna hang in what room, right? You would defer those decisions until it got to the point that you need to make them. But you have a rough draft plan of getting your house built. So I want you to really think about how you can start to separate decision making activities from the plan and allow the plan to support you on that journey. And then when you start to feel anxious or nervous about these big projects, have that visual tool in place that allows you to go back and go, no, okay, I know what needs to happen. I've thought of it. I'm aware that this is coming. But right now, all I need to worry about is the next step and the next decision that needs to be made. And relieving yourself from thinking that planning includes every single decision pre made. It absolutely does not need to. All right, friends, have a great day. We'll see you back here again next week.